Welcome. My name is Amber Smith, and on behalf of Evolving in Education, I would like to thank you all very much for joining. So we come here today to discuss nutrition and the vital role that it plays on cognition, focus, and behavior. So we have a presentation by one of our members, Jen Quirk. Jen, she works with adults and children on the development of their gut health. So I have a very brief presentation. She wasn't able to make it tonight, but she was kind enough to record a presentation for us. So I will show you this. And then I prepared a brief presentation as well with slides. And so we'll watch those two, and then we will open up to open discussion. And again, I thank you all so much for joining.
Hey everyone, my name is Jen Quirk, and I wish I could be there with you in person, but I can't tonight. I'll see you next time. But I just wanted to share a little bit of my perspective on the nutritional component that we can be incorporating, into everything that we do to get it into the school systems, to be educating parents, right? To be educating the kids. Because I feel like if somebody's nutrition is not there, so many things go awry, right? Physically, emotionally. And then all of a sudden we have a kiddo sitting there who isn't even close to be able to live up to their potential, right? They're working through like a lot of like caca, right? That's going on in their brains that's keeping them from focusing. Perhaps they're just not thinking well because they're not focused, they're groggy, right? If they wake up and they eat a bunch of crap in the morning, that's just going to set in by the time they get to school, right? And they're not going to be able to focus that well. What I've found, so in my previous life, I was a teacher for a few years, right? And then I went on to some more entrepreneurial things with my husband, like running parasail operations and flipping houses. But, my passion is in working with children. And I've kind of come around full circle to where I'm working with them now again, as well as adults. But what I'm finding is that just switching up nutrition makes all the difference in the world. And you've probably felt that with yourself too, right? But wouldn't it be cool if, within the schools, we could be advocating and teaching and empowering kiddos, like what good nutrition looks like, how they can be supportive of making better choices at home, right? Because sometimes the parents don't really know what it is. And in all honesty, sometimes it's easier for kids just to be picking off the shelves, right, than mom or dad, cutting up veggies, having fruits and, fruits available to them. It's hard. It can become expensive, and sometimes kids don't have access to that. So I am not a nutritionist, but like I know that my sister-in-law, like she always wanted to go out there and cooking with grains, like she's like, it would cost me nothing to provide nutrition for people. I mean, whether or not they'd eat it, right? Because that's something that somebody has to get used to. But there are so many different options out there. And the one specialty that I'm super, oh my gosh, it consumes me right now, is what's new to me is the connection between the gut and the brain, right? So the gut and the brain connected by the vagus nerve. I know we have experts within this community that can go a little bit more in depth into it, but it's a real thing. And when there's anything awry with that gut brain connection, it just makes it really hard for people to do the things that they want to be doing, could be doing, should be doing. Okay. So let me give you a for instance of what I'm talking about. So my daughter had some really significant digestive issues. She had IBS with a possible SIBO, which is a bacterial overgrowth. Those things triggered anxiety and depression. Okay, so she was a teen at the time. And I've got a lot of connections. I've got a lot of background knowledge, right? And even doing elimination with food, so eliminating gluten, eliminating dairy, eliminating sugar, she was still experiencing like all those symptoms. And that's kind of a scary thing as a parent, right? But at least it was on my radar, right? That I then knew that digestive issues actually trigger the anxiety and the depression for more than, it was more than just because, bloating doesn't look great on a teen, right? That was concerning. But the majority of your happiness hormones, right? The serotonins, the dopamines, the wonderful GABAs and neurotransmitters created in your gut. So when there's any issue going on in the gut, you're going to feel kind of those low level, maybe it's not having as much stress resilience. Maybe it's not having as much focus. Maybe you have some anxiousness. Maybe you have some depression. And what I've been finding is that we've been able to clear up a lot of those issues just by utilizing certain protocols to heal the gut and to make that connection between the gut and the brain that much more stable. So there's some really exciting things out there. And along that same line, and then I'll probably leave you with that, right? Because this is what's the most exciting. And I'll give you an update. I'm trying to get into some more spheres of people in this demographic. But after my daughter had such tremendous success, I was seeing that there were kiddos who were on the spectrum utilizing the same protocol that she did, getting some amazing results. So I'm kind of I need to see it to believe it, right? Kind of firsthand experience kind of girl. So I reached out to my cousin who has a kiddo that's on the spectrum. And, she just, she looked into ingredients and that type of thing. And she's like, yeah, this is clean. This is great. Why not? Let's just add it in. What if healing up Michael's gut, what if, she didn't know exactly what everything was doing, but it all made sense to her. What if it could help him, right? And what we found is that as soon as 3 days into it, he was doing some things that she had never seen him do before. And now we're a whole year into it, and literally Michael is doing things that she never ever thought she'd see him do in his lifetime. So that's so exciting. So that's kind of what I'm trailblazing over here. And so I'm here to just support everything that Amber is doing. I'm so excited about it because I am, being a former teacher, I actually was a homeschool mom too, right? So I stopped teaching probably a couple years into it, like I told you. And then I did the homeschooling a little bit when the kids were younger. I did a little bit in high school. I've had my daughter in different private schools. So I've kind of experienced the whole, every experience probably that you could ever have. So I'm a big proponent that things do need to be fixed. I think that, nutrition is kind of that foundational that needs to be addressed, because when you have kiddos sitting there who can't communicate well, who can't focus, who have behavior problems, what I'm finding is that a lot of it stems down to nutrition, right? Especially that gut. And I think just to get that on the radar and just to be empowering them, it was so, oh my gosh, when my kids were little, I knew they'd be starving coming home from school and like eat anything. So I call them party platters, and I had cut up veggies and fruit and, whatever other, healthy thing that I had, and they would just gorge on it. So that was one way that I could get things in. So maybe, come up with, different tips and tricks for kids to bring home to their parents, because parents need to be educated too. I mean, we don't love to see our kids struggling. And I know firsthand, behavior problems, a lot of it is their nutrition. 100%. You take some of the things out and incorporate some, healthier choices in, and you see total 360s, especially things with attention deficit. That's a whole other thing. Oh my goodness. Just nutritional changes, incorporating things like saffron. Amazing. Like you see kids getting off of Ritalin, right? And onto good nutrition and things like saffron, which are super, super powerful, and having much better results than kind of being drugged out on things like Ritalin. So anyways, I hope you guys have a great rest of the meeting. That was a little bit long, and I look forward to meeting everybody. And again, sorry I couldn't be there tonight, but yeah, I'll meet you guys all soon.
All right, thank you very much, Jen. We highly appreciate that. Can everyone hear me? Well, I just get a thumbs up.
Would you like to see how we started our own fully remote lifestyle business by just uploading these
Lord.
short PDFs to Amazon
Okay.
in the next 3 minutes?
Sorry. Okay, so we'll move on to my brief slide presentation, and I would like to just add, I know you guys already know this, but I don't have any kind of PhD or background in nutrition or education or neuroscience. I'm just a very enthusiastic researcher, I guess you would. This all is dear to my heart, and Evolving Education's mission is. So I'm going to share these slides just to, and if anyone has any questions for Jen, she asks to be contacted directly. I'm happy to put you in contact with her. And as soon as I finish this brief presentation, we'll open up to any questions and open discussion. All right, so nutrients play essential roles in the formation and maintenance of brain cells and neural connections. They provide a steady release of glucose, and this is through the breakdown of complex carbohydrates, when glucose is the primary energy source for the brain. Nutrients influence cognitive function, including memory, attention, and problem-solving abilities. Nutrients also protect against cognitive decline. The gut has significant influence on the brain and overall mental health. The gut produces a variety of neurotransmitters, including serotonin and dopamine. Approximately 90% of the body's serotonin is produced in the gut. Imbalances in the gut have been associated with mental health conditions such as depression, anxiety, and neurodegenerative disease. The gut houses a significant portion of the body's immune system. Gut-brain axis refers to the bidirectional communication that occurs between the gut and brain. It plays a crucial role in overall well-being and mental health. The gut-brain axis links emotional and cognitive centers of the brain with peripheral intestinal functions. Information is transmitted from the gut to the brain using neurotransmitters via the vagus nerve. Gut-brain axis is closely tied to the body's response system. So the vagus nerve connects the gut and brain through the gut-brain axis, is the longest and most complex nerve in the body. It influences the body's relaxation response, heart rate, blood pressure, digestion, and overall well-being. The vagus nerve connects the brain to various organs such as the heart, lungs, digestive system, and other internal organs. It also carries sensory information and regulates various bodily functions such as digestion, inflammation, and mood. Now, I do not own this image or the one before it, but I had to share because I feel they're just such great depictions of the gut-brain axis. So here we have it. Gut bacteria produce serotonin, which influences mood, sleep, and focus. The vagus nerve sends messages from the gut to the brain and vice versa. Then the brain interprets the messages and creates our mood. So that's how the information it travels, or how the gut-brain axis sort of operates. So in summary, the gut-brain axis plays a crucial role in overall well-being and mental health. The vagus nerve is the pathway through which the gut and brain communicate. Stress can affect gut function. Conversely, disturbances in the gut can trigger stress responses in the brain. And the best way to have a healthy gut is to consume nutritious food. So I want to add that this is my first ever slideshow, and I'm not sure I got the summary just right. I think I was a little off topic there. Anyway, here we have our call to action. Mental health and overall well-being are tightly coupled with the food we eat. Join Evolving in Education as we educate students, teachers, and parents on the important role nutrition plays in the development of our bodies, minds, and the very lives we live. To get involved, email us at evolvingineducation@gmail.com or use our handy QR code for our Facebook group. Finally, thank you for joining, friends. And now we will open the floor up to any questions, comments, and open discussion.
Yay, good job, Amber. Let's go.
Thanks, Jesse. I'm glad you joined, man.
Yeah, you did great. You did great.
Thank you. I feel it was pretty obvious. That was my first ever presentation, but I had fun making it, and I felt that would be a better way than to have to read it all, off a piece of paper that was scribbled on. But does anyone have any follow-up for Jen Quirk's presentation? I find that all fascinating. She's the one that told me about the connection between the gut and the brain, and how it is, facilitated through the vagus nerve. And what she said about saffron, I found that incredibly fascinating as well. So would anyone like to add anything or ask any questions about either of the presentations? And if not, we can,
Amber,
yes.
yeah, what is saffron? Saffron is a herb, right? What are we talking about when we're talking saffron?
It's the herb or the spice, whatever it is. It's like a deep color red.
More expensive than gold, gram for gram.
Yeah, it's high dollar stuff.
Yeah.
But apparently it has pretty huge potential, I find that fascinating. I looked into that last night a little bit, and yeah, it does seem to have a lot of benefits.
Are we talking about the tea or how do you use it? Do you use it sparingly in like a spice or something?
In recipes is the only time I've ever used it, but I'm sure if you're using it medicinally, yeah, I'm sure there's a variety of different ways you can ingest it.
So just including it in your regimen is what she's talking about.
Yes.
Okay. I definitely look forward to a round 2 because she sounds so experienced. It's like, okay, well, what what do you do? I love that. That's great. It's great information, but it was like the overview, and I'd love to hear a little more. She said there was a time. She said she thought she went over time. Had you given her a time limit?
No, I hadn't. She just said she said that she thought it was a little long. I thought it was very very concise and informative.
Yeah,
no,
definitely.
I didn't give her any kind of time limit. I told her we'd been keeping it to about 20 minutes.
Okay.
That was well under at 9 minutes. But yeah, it sounds like she's gonna join our next focus group meeting, and hopefully all of them. She's very knowledgeable on the subject. She has several friends, I believe, that also have some background. Like I believe I mentioned at one point that she has a friend who's a former Olympian who does nutrition for child athletes, I believe. Another thing that I find fascinating about the vagus nerve, not to change the subject, but it is that is what is activated through mindfulness. So I mean that makes sense, it's all throughout your nervous system and related to relaxation and blood pressure and all that.
Like humming, like stimulates the vibrations, stimulate the vagus nerve as well.
Yeah, like gargling as well, right? I heard gargling can be.
Yeah, what does it's the same sort of vibrational feeling. Like that's the same reason, like they do the because it stimulates all the way from the gut up to the brain.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very.
So on our little podcast that I call it my little business, we talk about the vibrations and the sounds that we've put in our ears and what kids are listening to.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty interesting, tying that all together. I love that aspect of it.
Yes, it is. And what you guys do with the sound healing, that fascinates me. And do you guys do the resonant frequencies?
We talked about it a little bit. Now my the website she just actually got it up yesterday. she's got a professional learning, I'm trying to think how to, like a presentation that you can purchase. I haven't looked at it to see how much she put it, is charging for it. That's kind of the whole thing, is schools having access to online professional learning. So she talks about her whole, like how you can use sound to help kids regulate. And but I didn't realize when you said that about the frequency, I think Ben said that. That's really interesting. I'm a yoga instructor, so I know that that sound is something they do for relaxing and to just open your mind, I think is the way to say it. So
Yes.
Yeah, because we incorporate it into my breath work, and some of the breath work I do to incorporate the sort of the humming or the oming, just to help stimulate that. Yeah, it's pretty amazing actually, and it's the frequency too. Like, so I've heard like, because I think modern sound that we all hear is all apparently it's in like somewhere around the 420 hertz frequency or something like this. I don't know if you've heard of this, but our body apparently is sort of vibrating at the 432 hertz. So you can actually go onto Spotify and there's like 432 hertz playlists. And I've tried playing around with them recently, just listening to it's nice gentle music, and that does seem to have a calming effect. Whether it's a placebo effect, I'm not sure, but just the actual frequency of the sounds we're hearing as well. So even your TV's not at if that makes sense.
yeah. But when I started learning about sound therapy, and I don't know if you guys have heard about this, and I heard about it because my son was a teenager at the time, and he wanted to go to this concert, and I cannot remember who it was, but some rapper, I think, and he played high like frequencies that evoke anger, and the crowd just went nuts. And before the concert, he had to cancel the concert because before the concert ever started, they were going crazy and trampling people and pushing
Wow.
and shoving. Yeah, it was insane. And so I think that happened somewhere in Texas. So I started, when I started looking into like what started it was manifesting and meditating, and one thing leads to another if you guys are into that at all. And I was learning about the frequencies, and they were talking about radio frequencies that like Nazi Germany played over the radio to evoke anger in their ears. And
And I
that, like, go ahead, Ben.
and I I
Yeah.
think, and today as well, I think it's it's without. I think the reality to today is that is probably a similar case in our environments as well, and
Yeah.
the what we consume as well. It's yes, I think it's well used and well known technology that, and it's quite scary actually of how easy and simple it is to sort of use to sort of manipulate their mind in a sense, and manipulate how it's those emotions that it's actually feeling.
Yeah, it's really scary, especially knowing how much our kids, and we've kind of taken a turn from nutrition. I apologize, but it's scary. It's interesting and scary all at the same time, considering how much of our society is plugged in all the time.
100%, and even the freak, because everything electronic has that electronic magnetic field, sort of an EMF around it as well, and just even those. Having your EMFs too close to your phone or your laptop, if you're sitting too close to them, your tablets. I don't know, there have been some studies, I don't know, but even that can have an effect on because that's a magnetic field, and our body's a magnetic field, and we've got a magnetic field sort of that reaches out a couple, I think it's like 8 feet around us, we've got a magnetic field. So I can imagine if you're bringing another magnetic fields into that sort of zone, it's going to have an impact as well.
Yeah. All the new, so I guess back to the nutrition, it's just fascinating how that can tie to your vagus nerve and then your sounds, and then your body's a pretty amazing machine.
It's fascinating, and I think that that all of this research, is very, very cutting edge and new. We're just now learning all of this, and it blows my mind, just to see how directly related, our diet is to our mental health, and how neglected it is. Like I saw from the, what is it, CDC, I believe that I read something that 9 out of 10 children don't eat enough, fruits and vegetables. And
Well, the American diet now consists of 60% processed food. The UK diet is sitting about 50%, and New Zealand and Australia will be not far behind that as well. And it's all those processed foods, which are just factory food, basically. It's sort of, yeah, I think to go avoid factory foods if you can, because that is highly detrimental, as we know, to the body and the brain, all those processed foods.
yes, and
Just to,
Yeah.
just to underscore that, Ben, the idea that there are different diets that folk are recognizing. Amber, you had said that this is new. Honey, people have been doing this stuff since the 50s, figuring out what is proper
Yep.
diet. And then in the 70s, there was this whole push towards a food pyramid. I listened to a lecture about a year ago where a doctor who was big on the vax thing was like, everything that I've been taught is upside down. The whole food pyramid is wrong.
Yes.
There are those that are proponents of instead of switching to straight vegan eating, it's meat, go straight carnivore diet where there's nothing else. And my thought, and I even switched to that for several months and found some interesting effects from it. And that's from back when I was in my 20s. I had done a completely live diet, which was fascinating. After doing vegan, I went straight raw and live, and it was fascinating. The key for me in switching and doing this 360 and doing a all meat diet is it's getting rid of the processed crap, the
Mhm.
stuff that they're putting in the foods, processing it and adulterating natural goodness. It seems like that's the problem. Whether you're doing a full fruit and veggie diet, whether you're doing live, but you're cutting out the carcinogens and all of these chemicals, or a full meat diet where you're trying to find the best cuts of meat where they're organic, and the feed is organic, or they're at least more natural and less herb, what do you call it, the stuff that's
Horm-
natural
hormones. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. The hormone, without the hormones, knowing that it's coming from a good source, cutting out those yucks that they're putting in, that seems to be the key to just about everything. That's what helps your gut heal. That's what helps your mental be facilitated by proper nutrients, because everything's just so adulterated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's not
We
just
were,
the
my
food,
husband.
it's the water.
Oh yeah, it's everything. Yeah. We were just talking the other day. Did you mention Jamal, you mentioned the upside down food pyramid. It's totally backwards. And I don't want to like sound completely right or completely left. Just understanding things, having the food pyramid where your grains and your carbs and your breads were all the big bottom part of it. That's what I grew up learning. That's the cheapest, easiest way to feed a society,
That's right. Potatoes.
so that's why they're like, all right, we can fill everybody up on breads, and then we'll have them overweight and fat. And breads aren't bad, it's just that should not be the base of your diet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the quality of those grains as well. It's not necessarily the grains of the issue, it's the quality. Because I've heard a few stories of like the Germans, going overseas and going, what the hell is wrong with your bread? It destroys my gut. Where in Germany, it's like, man, it's great. And Italy's recently just said, well, look, we're not playing by all these new rules that you're introducing to the United Nations, etc. In the EU, we want our Italian food, we want our traditional food, we want to grow traditionally. We don't want your new way of doing food. We're happy with our systems because it works for us. And they have, and Italians generally do have a pretty good life expectancy too, one of the highest in the world, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
We've checked out how the Amish have zero autistic.
Wow.
Zero.
Wow. No
that's-
surprises though.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know,
Zero.
if you want to, but it depends, you know, like all of this as well. Like it's wow, it depends how it depends. With that, it's with all this massive rise in ADHD and autism and people being in sort of a state of fear, it's highly detrimental to sort of individual well-being, sort of in a way. But when you talk about the neurological process of all these things, right, it actually it reduces the prefrontal cortex, you know, the action of it. You know, it's you have, I think I learned a new word the other day, it's sort of persistent frontality. So basically reduced blood flow in the prefrontal cortex. But what that actually does as well, it does what they're sort of now proving with studies as well, is it actually makes people more creative, which makes sense because you're not using your sort of executive function part of your brain as much, you're using the internal brain. So those people with creatives, and they can now measure this, they can now scan your brain and sort of almost pretty much say, well, we know this person is going to be creative from the way their brain's working. And it's interesting because the society we find ourselves moving into as well, you know, like with the gig economy, and it's a creator economy because the whole existing traditional economy is being replaced by AI and machines, etc. So creator economy is the future now, and they've been pushing this for a while. I read this about 10 years ago about the future was going to be a creator economy. I never really thought about it like that. So in a way, how our brains are actually changing over these last 20, 50 years, I'm going to slowly be changing something. It's actually, in a bad way, there are benefits to it for the creator economy. So you could almost say it's quite it's a positive detriment. It's a detrimental, but also a positive outcome in a sense, where it's sort of people are changing and sort of we're physically changing to be more suited for the new world, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Huh. I never thought about that. That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what we talk about social engineering, right? You know, so I mentioned that before. You know, could this be all sort of part of that sort of coincidental sort of where the, you know, how we're how we're changing and where we're going. You got to be careful on this topic because, you know, you don't want to go down any sort of paths that might sound a bit too lunatic. But then in this day and age, I don't think you can really.
No.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
I don't think anything sounds too lunatic. I think anything's possible anymore.
Most definitely.
In terms of bringing this to students, bringing this to curriculum, bringing this to parents and teachers, I mean, this is what it's about. And unfortunately, I think some of the conversation must be had. Luckily, you guys have someone that digs. I dig all the time. You know, like I'm on the fringe of trying to see what others are saying. So I go down these holes quite often. And I think that's helpful. You know, I like to say that I'm contributing some of that, or at least I'm helping to contribute towards that so that we don't leave it out. You know, you can't just say it doesn't exist. These fringe concepts that actually are helpful. You can't. We shouldn't, you know.
They have to be explored, at least, you know, the surface of them. They have to be explored to see, is there any validity in these ideas or these potentials.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you
So,
about you just
go ahead, Ben.
Oh, it's okay. You go. So I think because I'm in New Zealand, there's a little bit of a delay sometimes. So you finish and I'll go after you.
I honestly forgot already.
We'll come back.
Oh gosh.
Oh, okay. I'll jump. But Jamal, did you say before about bringing this to schools? You know,
Yeah.
Like you know, we've got the heart math, we've got heart rate variability in that. That's sort of, it's a really easy tool that that's the way we can bring it to students, because I've been digging into this in the last few weeks for this heart rate variability thing. And you can get the apps on your phone, and you can literally use your camera on the back of your phone and put your finger over it. So it's like one of those, basically it's the same concept as using one of those smartwatches. It's using light to shine through your finger or your body, your tissues, and measure the blood oxygen levels in it. But what this stuff, I've been blown away just by digging into HRV. Like, it tells you your stress levels, you know, what if you're whether you're spending in you're in the sympathetic nervous system or in the sympathetic nervous system. But the other big one as well was the heart coherence. And all of these things, right? These also affect, because if your heart coherence and you're spending too much time in your sympathetic mode, that's also reducing the load of reducing the activity in the prefrontal cortex as well. So by actually just simply monitoring it with our phones, and if you can monitor it, you know, imagine monitoring the kids in the morning, going, right, everyone, what's your test? What's your test? How's your health check? We'll call it a health. How's your health check looking this morning? And they'll be like, oh, yeah, not too bad. Okay, right. Yeah, what we're going to do? We're going to do 5 minutes, just a quick 5 minutes of breath work class, and that's going to bring. And then you can measure the results after. You can, because this is what I've been doing the last few weeks. I had a bit of a mini sort of like moment recently, and just I was like, so I measured myself, and I was like, holy shit, I'm well out of balance. So I just lay down, did some breath work, checked it, and I was like, there we go, look at that. And even people would go, oh, but we're going to lose time in the classroom, we're doing even if you wasted 25% of class time doing breath work or something just to slow the kids down, that last 75% is going to be far more productive than a whole hour of stressed out kids, you know?
Yes, we talk about that. Like if you spend time doing the meaningful things like breath work for this example, or a brain break that involves breath work or setting up class routine, they're going to learn so much more because they're prepared for it. And so are you really losing class time? I mean, you can shove things down their throat all day long, but if they don't absorb it, it doesn't matter what you did.
And actually, this is class time because you're teaching them skills for life. They can have these for life, and if you ingrain it, make those skills habitual within them, you know, throughout life, especially young age, throughout life, whenever they find themselves in that stressful position, boom, they know what to do, you know. So instead of reaching for that junk food. Yes, and that reminded me of a study that when I was doing my trauma-informed training on through the neurosequential model, they talked about this teachers who actually it was a science experiment, and they taught their kids to pay attention to their pulse, their blood pressure. And so they bought these pulsometers for the kids, and they monitored them when they got there in the morning. And then they would say, okay, look at your pulse. Like, how was your morning? Was it stressful? Were you late getting up? Did, mom and dad yell because you were running late? Did you miss the bus? All those things. Take a quick note, like, I had a stressful morning and I noticed my rate is this. And then have them throughout the day, like Ben said, okay, we're going to do some breathing, we're going to do some exercises, get our blood pumping, whatever it was, and they take their pulse. And so they continue to teach the kids how their brain was working and all of this. And then they had a test about it, and they said, okay, now when you come in, the teacher stood there with the sign at the door when they came in, and it said, there's a quiz today. And they went in, took their pulse. Some were high, some were just normal. And they noticed, like, okay, I have a quiz, and it's a pop quiz. I wasn't prepared for it, that their pulse was higher. But throughout all their teaching, and they're like, okay, when my pulse was high the other day, I did some deep breathing. And they just went straight to that without being told to bring their pulse down. Okay.
Yeah. And it was really fascinating. I was like, wow, that's just so amazing. So you're like you said, Ben, you are teaching them life skills, and they're implementing it. I believe it was like a seventh grade classroom. So it was super interesting. If you do the same thing, like when I was in sixth grade, way long time ago, we did nutrition experiments with 2 mice. In one class, there was 2 classrooms in sixth grade, and one class had junk food mouse, and the other class had the healthy mouse. And we watched the difference. And I was in the class with the healthy mouse, and he grew, and he was beautiful white, and the junk food mouse didn't grow, and his fur turned gray, and he slept all the time. Ours wanted to, we kept giving him toys. It was amazing.
Wow. What a great study. What a great visualization study as well,
Yeah, wow. It was cool.
But would you see the heart rate, right? So were you talking just like the pulse? Because
I believe it was a pulse. They had a pulsometer that the kids put on their fingers.
Yep. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Because so, just on that pulse thing, though, like this is the thing I've learned recently. Like just because your pulse is slightly elevated, your heart rate variability can be perfectly coherent and running smoothly. Because yeah, the pulse isn't sort of your final determination of the stress levels, if that makes sense. So the heart rate variability is going to give you a sort of stress levels. Yeah, your heart rate can be high, but you can be running smoothly as well because you're excited or something, you're like, oh, well, I'm excited, but I'm in sync and I'm focused as well. But yeah, along those lines anyway.
That is some
Yeah.
truly fascinating stuff, guys. Real quick, I've got just a couple questions. What challenges do you face in maintaining a healthy diet? Does anyone have any challenges they face in maintaining a healthy diet?
It's
I think, sorry, Jamal or Ben, I'll just finish real quick. In the US, I think it's, we all try to lead such busy lives, and fast food is easy.
Yes.
exactly. It's the friction. There's too much friction towards a healthy diet.
Yeah, all the options are unhealthy.
Yep.
Or really expensive. Like fruit and vegetables or fresh fruit in the grocery store is pretty expensive unless you find it about to go off or you get lucky and find it. I like the idea of more community gardens and in places where it's viable, planting fruit trees where people can have access to fresh fruit. Like for instance, along sidewalks, planting fruit trees. I don't know how sustainable that is, but I think there's areas where that just work great. And you see more and more schools nowadays, which are doing more and more schools and communities that are doing outdoor gardens for the public to come and learn how to garden and get free food, which is incredibly encouraging.
Yep.
So that sort of answers the next question I had. How can our organization or community support healthier eating habits? That would be one way, is to encourage community gardens. Additionally, educating parents of the because we all hear, we all get told and we all know that we're supposed to eat healthy, but I think all the science behind it sort of just gives you even more drive, to see how directly related it is to the creation and maintenance of your brain cells and neural connections. That's a huge motivation. So one more thing.
It-
Go ahead, Jamal or
Ben?
Ben. Go ahead.
Oh, I lost it now. No, carry on. Sorry.
Let me
I do that
let
all
me-
the time.
let me throw out there that in terms of brainstorming, what we've talked about before, Amber, are the little bite-sized concepts. These discussions I find really helpful, and bottling them like you did with I don't want to mess up the name, but the little short that you created, having having little even from the young lady today, having little shorts that we are then just pushing, just sharing, just giving to communities, I think is a start. Little educational pieces, they're already being done. They seem to be helpful because they come on my timeline. And if someone peers and is able to gather a new piece of information, I think that's a great start at something.
Yes, and like Liraz, she's very enthusiastic and she's got a great personality as well. So it's very engaging, I feel.
Yep.
But I mean, all of our group is enthusiastic and engaging, and I like that idea of creating more shorts. I
Mhm.
spoke to Ben about the software to produce that. Ended up using WiseCut, Ben, to make the short that I made.
Yeah, sweet. Was it quite easy?
Yeah, fairly. I was impressed with it. It wasn't exactly what I was looking for, but I trust that that'll come. I've got just one more question for y'all. How do you perceive the importance of nutrition in our daily lives? I know we've already sort of answered that, but just if you guys would just sort of a brief.
It's
sort of-
huge.
Huge, yes. Very
But
important.
it is, but eating healthily as well is it's similar to not smoking, not drinking. It's they won't when you feel happy, you eat healthy, so it's sort of, unless you're feeling good, you're not going to grab that healthy food either. So it's sort of one part of the bigger picture, isn't it, as well? It's not it's not the ultimate solution. It's a massive part of the solution, but yeah, it's you got to be happy and feeling good to want to eat good as well.
Yes.
So one thing that I talked to our teenage daughter about just this weekend, we noticed like she's just eating a lot of carbs and sugary stuff and just piling it on. And, 4th of July celebrations are for that. But then right after that, she would say, I have a terrible headache. I'm going to go lay down. And finally, we saw her do this 2 or 3 times. And I said, I'm not trying to lecture because I'm stepmom, but I'm not trying to lecture you, but I want you to pay attention to how you feel as soon as you eat and what you do. And she was like, yeah. And I said, you had a headache. All those sugary things, like your body is not made to process so much. So I think it's huge when, Amber, back to your question, in daily life, like what if she did that right after school and she just went and laid down? I mean, that's why we have an overweight society for the most part. Our, with kids, they're sluggish if they're not running, and doing sports all the time. Just pay attention to how you feel after you eat. If you don't feel good, it's probably because you didn't eat well. So I think it's a huge. Nutrition is straight to our mental health, I think.
Yes, definitely. And how Evolving Education's mission is to improve public education, but we also aim to, improve families, help families and communities and children in general. So I know, or I would imagine that only about 1/3 of the food that children eat when they're attending school actually comes from public schools. So, we could give them as healthy lunch as possible in the school, and then they still go home. And Angel, like you said, sort of just pig out on junk food. So that brings it back to educating parents. How do we get all meals to be more nutritious and
Well,
wholesome?
and just kind of our society today, I mean, like I said, I'm stepmom, so our kids live in 2 different households. So like today we went grocery shopping and my husband said, you used to be a big yogurt, like, Greek yogurt fan. What happened? And I'm like, well, the yogurt I was getting was full of sugar. And she was like, well, that's what I like. It tastes good. And I'm like, well, okay. So I said, that's your choice. I'm not getting that yogurt. And she's staying with us this week. So she's like, I want this yogurt. And I said, well, we could pick some other options. So it's like living in different worlds, but modeling it on this side and then trying to make healthy choices while you're in the other home. So I guess educating parents and then your teenage kids to make those healthy choices.
Yes, I think also, start in the schools at young ages, educating these children on the importance and on how to maintain healthy diets, as well as, the role it plays in their development. Are you guys familiar with quinoa? It's a super grain. It's delicious.
Oh,
I love
quinoa.
it.
Quinoa,
Yeah.
it's amazing. Additionally, cachava. Have any of you guys heard of cachava? It's a whole body meal. It's a superfood. Supposedly it has like all the superfoods in the world in it. I was on the West Coast in San Francisco last year, and my friends, they told me about it and shared some with me. They're like, it's the best thing in the world for you. And I was like, I was actually upset. I was like, doesn't everyone know about this then? You know, how come only San Franciscans know about it? They're like, well, it just came out. And I was like, oh, I get it. Anyway, it's really expensive, which is unfortunate, but you know,
Mhm.
if we have the access to these superfoods, you know, why don't we try to figure out how to turn away from all the grease and sugar and processed and carbs and figure out how to actually have like healthy meals that are good for you and taste good, because it is possible.
It's a good question.
I've always wanted to, in addition to making a a blockbuster Disney superhero movie to change the world, I wanted to also create a fast food chain of healthy fast food that's both fast and healthy and delicious. My mom,
Yes.
she got cancer quite a few years ago. She's free of it now, thank the Lord, but she skipped her radiation and opted for a raw diet, a high raw diet, which was 90% raw. So we had, you know, a lot of, we went to a raw restaurant and found out some great raw recipes. Sorry, that's hard to say. Like raw lasagna using a nut cheese and zucchini and, you know, tomato. You can create some pretty good things. It is, you know, it's not as easy as throwing something in the microwave, but
Mhm.
it's phenomenal, the health benefits. And I know we sort of live in a society where, you know, we're more about the, or is it curing the problem than correcting it? But I think we can make a shift, you know, stop pulling people out of the creek, go upstream, see why they're falling in and try to help them. So, and that's definitely a starting point is nutrition, improving mental health and well-being. So anyway, I greatly look forward to Evolving in Education's engaging in the nutritional foundation of for the future, because this is a very key point. So does anyone have anything else for today?
I wanted to contribute a couple of things, almost in closing. One, to go back, we were talking about um, when you're engaging with family and trying to figure out how to get things together. I'm a staunch believer in the us versus them, and us is inclusive and the them is very inclusive as well. Like the them becomes anybody that is opposing the concepts of health, anyone that's opposing the concepts of betterment. And us is family, us is individual, us, just me as myself, but also the family unit becoming us versus them just as much as we can. Like if we pit the fight instead of us thinking, oh well, the Rams are fighting the Cubs, right? Like if we can put the type of energy that we have in a sports team and we consider us the team, then that becomes just um, a very useful tool in creating some solidarity and fighting some of that team fatigue, that team boredom, because that's it's such a world in and of itself. The other thing was when we're talking about where evolving in education is going and the concept of bringing others on board, the smallness of our groups, I love it. And I just I don't really like I don't I'm not looking forward to the day that there's so many people that we can't have these types of tight discussions, short but informative and just really helpful. And I'm done. I yield.
I promise Jamal will always have time for those smaller discussions. We can, you know, like the goal is to eventually have subcategories within our focus groups and, you know, to keep them all fairly, you know, manageable. But yeah, that I love everything that was discussed, and I thank you guys all so much. Anyone else have anything else they'd like to add before we
That was
say?
well said, Jamel. Yeah, that was, yeah, well said, well said.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Great discussion. I appreciate you organizing these, and glad I could hop on.
Yes, thank you very much for all you guys for joining. I'll just really briefly summarize the main insights and ideas through the meeting. It is that mental health and well-being are directly related to the gut and brain axis. That's the gist of the meeting. All right, well, thanks again, you guys. I really appreciate you. And I encourage you all to join next week's developmental neuroscience / psychology focus group meeting. It will be at 6 p.m. Wednesday. And then the following week will be the mindfulness, fitness, well-being. And then the next Wednesday will be our childhood education curriculum. I know we have a presentation planned for that one. I haven't got presentations for the others yet. Hopefully I will. And then a month from today will be our next nutrition focus group meeting. Additionally, we've moved our general meeting from Thursday at 3 p.m. to Saturday at 10 a.m. Central. I'm just about to create the event and invite everyone. So I welcome you all to join, and I can't thank you guys enough.
Ben had
Thank you,
asked
Amber.
to, oh, yes. Ben had asked to stay a little bit afterwards
Okay.
to discuss something.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Yeah, we can talk about that.
Okay.
Second brain deal. That sounds great. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna end.
Thanks, guys.
You guys have a
Thank
great
you.
day.